There we go. Okay. And I was going to say, we're live. No, we're not. I'm not using streaming video right now. You know, pre-recorded, that type thing. Let me take off my reading glasses. Because I'm old. I'm 67 years old. Okay. It's like I've told a lot of you before. I'll tell y'all a little about my credentials here. I'm very valuable and I'm very accurate because if I don't know something or I'm doing something that's experimental, I'm not going to make a video on that. Anytime I make a video, it's because from experience I've done it and I know exactly what I'm talking about. Despite all the tech shops, the Harley shops, most of those people, they're just scam artists, and most of those aren't even mechanics. They're just following instructions, you know, to where they print out sheets. They're just following instructions, but they're not actually mechanically inclined people. And I've noticed a lot of them do a lot of things that are not even necessary. Like, you know, on the Evo, you don't have to take the damn oil tank out to change the starter. Even the old design to where you had to take the jack shaft off from inside the primary and remove the primary cover. You don't have to take the damn oil tank off. That's all a bunch of bullshit. You know, because, you know, you disconnect your battery, ground, you know, and then you take your two quarter-inch Allen bolt heads out or loosen them. The starter drops down, you pull it back some, you drop it down, you can take off. You know, the nut that holds the cable on the top. You know, you can get that. You can take those starters out. You know, I've done it before, you know, on my own box or whatever. And right now, for the record, what am I running? 97 Fat Boy. It's got the stock original engine. It's got about 70,000 miles. My other one is a 2002 Softail Custom with the 1450. It's a twin cam B version, which means, you know, it's got the tensioners, you know, for the cam chains, the two cam chains in the nose cone. And then it's got the two counterbalancers with a chain inside the engine, inside of the right case, on the inner part of the right case. See, and then the A version, they had the tensioners, you know, for the cam chains, but they didn't have the counterbalancers and chain with the guide. That's the difference in the A and B versions of your twin cams. Okay, now to get to what this video is actually about. It's about carburetors, but it's also about spark plugs. Okay, a guy that I met about a week ago, it was up here at the Valero's gas station, and I've seen him before. He lives in the subdivision where I do. I've seen him before ride his bike up and down the streets, you know, it's runs opposite of the street I'm on or whatever. And he was telling me how that his Harley 96 Softail Heritage, it's got the Evo 80 cubic inch engine in it, 1340. How that the idle has always fluctuated, and that when like he is sitting and his engine's idling, he always has to rev it a little back and forth to keep it from dying. It just shuts off suddenly, you know, like it's angry or something. It just shuts off. It doesn't even spit back or anything. It just shuts off. And I asked him a couple of questions. And I said, I gave him my phone number. And I said, here's some things to try. And get back with me and let me know how it works out for you. And I told him a couple of things. I said, the spark plugs you're using in your Evo Softail, do they have an R on them? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you have alphanumeric numbers on spark plugs, or sometimes there's no alpha at all, it's just numbers. And I said, is there a R anywhere on that spark plug? He said, well, yeah, because I remember I used Champions. He said he ordered off the Dennis Kirk website, I believe. And he said that it starts with RN. And I'm like, okay. I said, why don't you try this? Use a non-resistor spark plug. Use a non-resistor spark plug. Also, another tip, I'll show y'all something. Here's what I use in mine, and it's worked better than any spark plug. It works better than the Harley Davidson spark plug. It works better than any of the Champions or the ones you pay all this money for. Autolite. 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 If you have an Evo, let's see, here's the number I use. 4265. 4265. Another tip, like, okay, here's two auto lines. Okay, one, it's got the screw-on tip right here. You notice this one, though. Let me see if I can get them up close enough for y'all to see. I don't know if y'all can see it, but, you know, I doubt it. It doesn't look like that came in clear. But on these spark plugs, unscrew these tips off of these. Unscrew them off. I'll tell you why. Because these days, a lot of these tips break up your electrical current. They break it up. Because it's a softer metal and they're not very conductive. As to where if you unscrew these, the metal tip, even though it doesn't fit tight over your spark plug wire, you know, it will, but I mean not as tight. As part of the spark plug, you know, it grips to the spark plug where it's got these, you know, ribs right here. Unscrew these tips off of these son of a bitches, because they have trouble conducting ignition current. They have trouble, you know, because you know, these are mingled metals that they use in this shit. You know, it's cheap. Unscrew those tips off these damn things. And your gap, you know, okay, 38 to 42,000. Set these things right at 38. Don't aim for the middle and say, oh, 38 to 42. Oh, I'll just set them at 40. Don't do that stupid shit. Because why not give yourself a longer time before you have to worry about regapping them in more miles? Get it at 38. Not under 38, but 38. It's better to be 39 thousandths than to be less than 38. You got to be 38 thousandths at least on these gaps. But stop using spark plugs that have the R on them. Because see, by U.S. weights measure, you know, laws, you know, it's like weight on a bottle of oil. Okay, the same federal things apply. If a spark plug is a resistor spark plug, it has to have an R. If it doesn't have an R, it is not a resistor spark plug. And even though they say these Autolites are resistor spark plugs, and even the ones that go in my 4.6 V8 in my 2002 Ford F-150 Super Crew Cab, they are not resistor spark plugs, because if there's no R on them, they are not resistor spark plugs. And I'll tell you something I know for a fact. Now, I know this to be true up to 2002 at least. You know, because this applies even on my 2002 Softail Custom. These work better with non-resistor spark plugs. And my Harley Fat Boy, it has the Ultima ignition in the nose cone. And it works better. And I told him, I said, try 4265 and unscrew those little tips off of it. But see, this metal here, without that screw-on tip, it's able to conduct electricity better and faster. It works better. You know, just make sure that your spark plug wires, if they press down on here good, and you press it all the way down to where it's touching this. And your engine will run more accurately. And another trick, see, it's carburation. I told the guy also, I said, when you shut it off, do you just shut it off and then turn your, petcock valve, turn your fuel off? He said, yeah. I said, but when you know you're going to shut it down for the night or whatever, do you turn the petcock valve off when you park it, plus let it run until the engine uses up all the fuel in the fuel bowl? And he said, no. And I said, start doing that. When you park it for the day or for the night, turn the petcock valve off while the bike is still running, and let it run until the engine shuts off on its own due to using all the gasoline in the float bowl. And what that does, see, the next time you get on that bike, see, start it the next day or next night, whatever that may be. When you open that petcock valve before you start it, see, it's going to have a forceful flow of gasoline come straight down. Anything, contamination or debris that's on the top of that float needle, or even where the float needle attaches to in the brass barrel carrier, it's going to blow it past it. Because see, what happens, most of you guys with Harleys, you think that when, you turn your fuel on and you start your Harley, you think because the overflow tube isn't leaking fuel out and the float needle isn't allowing it to overflow means that the float needle is seating correctly. What it is, while the bike's running, usually the overflow tube, you don't leak gasoline because the excess gasoline that's overflowing in the float bowl, it's going up into the throttle body through the pilot holes. That's why. And even sometimes the clearance, the nozzle sprayer. See, and you're running real rich, see, and that makes your idle fluctuate. But I told this guy these things. He called me earlier yesterday, and I was very intrigued. I was glad I could help him. He called me, and he said, yeah, man, I'm the guy from the gas station. He said, I did try those spark plugs, and I unscrewed those tips off the top, and I just let my bike sit there and run itself out of gasoline. And then I opened the pet cap. He said, it's never ran this good. He said, now it idles steady. The idle doesn't fluctuate. And that when I rev it, the idle goes directly back down. It doesn't take a while for the idle to go back down. And he said, it starts fast now. And he thanked me. I said, man, I'm glad I was able to help you. And he told me, he said, I'm going to save your number, and, if I ever have any other trouble, I'd like to call you. And I said, why don't you watch a lot of my videos on YouTube? I've got videos about Harley starters, the different types. The types like use the jack shaft on the inside of the Denso starters. A lot of stuff like that. Engine sprocket, engine seals and spacers, rotors, stators, compensators, and I'm like, how to adjust, your clutch properly, the right way to prevent transmission to primary oil transfer, leak shit, and he's like, oh wow, and he wrote down, my username that I got here, and I said, watch my videos, and it'll prep you up, with a lot of knowledges, things to know, about a lot of this stuff. But told you I was gonna mention my credentials. I was almost age 13. This was in late 1968. When I came back from my mother's and moved in with my dad just before I turned age 13, which when I turned 13, that was 1969, February, of that year. And back then, I helped to work on knucklehead Harleys, panheads. The knucklehead was first, then along came the panhead, shovel heads that were out at the time. And I started this just before I turned 13. I was very mechanically inclined, as a young boy. And, I had my first vehicle when I was 14. I couldn't afford a Harley, and they were actually too big. I wasn't tall enough, to balance one, even though I could work on them. And my first vehicle when I was 14, that was 1970, was a 1959 GMC pickup. It had the fleet side bed, the 8-foot fleet side bed, and the long inline 6-cylinder engine. Oh, God bless that truck, man. It was great. Always had engine trouble with it because it had crankshaft problem due to somebody. They just wore it to hell out. It had belonged to someone. They didn't take care of shit. And it would leak all out the rear main, shit like that. And, oh well, hey, life can be wonderful. Life can be wonderful, Is there anything else I want to talk about right now? I like to help people, and I like to let people know I'm not a salesman. I don't work on Harleys for a living. But I like to share this stuff with people because so many of you men with Harleys, you're being conned, you're being BS'd about so many things, and it's just to get you to spend a bunch of money. The best thing to do if you have a Harley, keep it all original. Quit buying from these aftermarket people. Use original Harley Davidson parts. It will work better. That's the way these machines were built. The engineers that built these parts to assemble these machines, they knew what they were doing. Don't change anything. I've heard of so many stories on here, guys. They go with these different lifters and their Evos, and they have all these screwed up problems. Don't do crap like that. Keep the original roller lifters in these Evos, guys. Go back, with standard parts. Those engines have more power than you will ever need when they're started. Why do you need more power? Why do you need more power? Unless you're on the racetrack and you're making thousands and thousands of dollars, why do you need to do these things? Are you trying to outrun the police or some other guy on a rice burner Jap bike that's next to you on the highway or freeway? I mean, what is the quota here? What is the quota, but anyway, I hope you're all doing great. Love you all. If you're a good person. If you're evil, I don't love you. But if you try and you're a good person, I love you, okay? Later.